Like my father, I never back down from challenges. So here I am, a little new to the convention scene. News of Donald Trump's daughter, Tiffany. Trump being sentenced to life imprisonment has sent shockwaves across the nation, leaving so many in disbelief. How did the once low-profile and private member of the Trump family end in such a situation? And what crime could have led to such a severe punishment? Stay tuned as we reveal the details of this jaw-dropping case. This is a story you won't want to miss. The Forgotten Trump, a life on the sidelines. When people hear the name Trump, they think of power, wealth, and a family deeply entrenched in business politics and high-profile media. Attention yet within this formidable dynasty, one figure has always stood apart. Tiffany Trump, often referred to as the Forgotten Trump. Tiffany's life has been a stark contrast to that of her half-siblings, raising a crucial question: was she ever truly part of the inner circle? Or has she always been on the outside, looking in born in 1993? To Donald Trump and his second wife, Marla Maples, Tiffany's early years were anything but conventional for a Trump unlike her half-siblings, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, who were raised in the heart of New York under their father's direct influence. Tiffany's childhood took a different path. When her parents divorced in 1999, she moved to Los Angeles with her mother growing up. Far removed from the high-stakes world of Trump Tower, instead of being groomed for the family empire. Tiffany led a relatively quiet life, attending school, enjoying California's beaches, and occasionally stepping into the entertainment industry through her mother's connections. This separation wasn't accidental. Marla Maples deliberately distanced her daughter from the Trump brand, shielding her from the immense pressures that came with it. Meanwhile, Ivanka was molded to take on leadership roles within the Trump organization and later in the White House. Donald Jr. and Eric cemented their positions as top executives in their father's business. But Tiffany, she was never given a defined place in the Trump empire. Even as she grew older, her attempts to bridge the gap seemed minimal. She followed in her father's academic footsteps, attending the University of Pennsylvania, before pursuing a law degree at Georgetown University. Some speculated this was her way of carving out a role within the family sphere. But in reality, she was never truly brought into the fold. Tiffany's status as an outsider within her own family was undeniable. Tiffany Trump had no defined place in the Trump empire. While she occasionally appeared at Republican national conventions or campaign rallies, her presence always felt more symbolic than strategic. A quiet acknowledgement of her connection to the family, rather than a role of influence. As Donald Trump's political career skyrocketed, the distance between Tiffany and the rest of the family only grew more apparent. Ivanka became her father's closest confidant, playing a pivotal role in shaping policies and managing public relations. Donald Jr. and Eric stood at the front lines, aggressively defending the Trump image against critics and the media. Tiffany, however, remained on the periphery. She gave speeches in support of her father. But unlike her siblings, her words carried little weight over time. A subtle but undeniable hierarchy within the Trump family became increasingly clear. Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Eric operated as a unit, bonded by their shared childhood experiences and collective ambition to uphold the Trump name. Tiffany, having grown up in a completely different world, struggled to find common ground with them. Even Barron Trump, the youngest of the siblings, seemed to have a more defined position within the family, shielded and carefully guided by Melania, Trump's influence. Tiffany was always present, yet never fully included. Her 2022 wedding to billionaire Michael Boulos at Mar-a-Lago only reinforced this dynamic. While the entire Trump family attended, the emotional distance was impossible to ignore. Unlike her siblings, whose futures remain deeply entangled in their father's business and political empire, Tiffany's marriage may have finally given her something they never had: a life of her own, with Bolos's immense wealth. Separate from the Trump brand, she had a chance to step away from the shadow of the family name and build an independent future. But as history has shown, escaping the Trump name is never that simple. So how did Tiffany silently disappear from Trump's inner circle? Keep watching to find out the silent removal. Tiffany's disappearance from the Trump inner circle in Donald Trump's world membership. In the inner circle is not a birthright. It must be earned, defended, and constantly reinforced. Loyalty, visibility, and strategic importance define one's position within the Trump family. Those who fail to meet these unspoken requirements often find themselves pushed aside. And over time, Tiffany Trump, once a distant, yet acknowledged presence, appears to have been quietly removed from the family's core. Her exclusion has been subtle, but undeniable. While Donald Trump actively engages Ivanka and Eric in political and business affairs, Tiffany has been absent from key discussions about the future of the Trump legacy as her father maneuvers through political battles, legal challenges, and efforts to cement his influence. Those closest to him are shaping the narrative. Yet despite carrying the Trump name, Tiffany has been left out of these defining moments. This exclusion is no accident. It is a calculated shift. A striking sign of Tiffany's diminishing role is the near-total absence of public recognition from her father, Donald Trump, known for lavishing praise on his children when they serve his interests, rarely mentions Tiffany in speeches, interviews, and even social media. Her name is conspicuously missing, and in a family where visibility equals power, her absence speaks volumes. Meanwhile, Ivanka remains his trusted advisor, Donald Jr., and Eric continues to champion his political ambitions. And even Baron Trump, carefully protected by Melania's influence, has a clearer position within the family hierarchy. Tiffany, however, has faded from view. This shift may not just be about personal preference. It may be a matter of strategy, with mounting legal troubles and a relentless political agenda. Trump requires a tightly controlled inner circle to maintain an image of unity and strength. He cannot afford weak links, and in the brutal hierarchy of the Trump empire, any family member who does not actively reinforce that image risks being sidelined for good. Tiffany Trump's relative independence, her lack of deep involvement in Trump's business dealings, and her limited political presence may have made her an easy target for quiet exclusion, unlike her half-siblings, who have remained deeply embedded in Trump's sphere of influence. Tiffany never fully integrated into the family's power structure. She was always adjacent to the empire, never truly inside it. Another factor in Tiffany's diminishing role may be Melania Trump's growing influence. Unlike Tiffany, Melania's son Barron has a direct advocate, ensuring his relevance in the Trump legacy with Melania, carefully positioning Barron for a future within the family's power network. Tiffany, lacking a similar champion, has continued to drift further into the background, without a strong internal supporter fighting for her inclusion. Her place within the Trump empire has all but disappeared. Tiffany's 2022 marriage to Michael Bolos may have cemented this shift, while the Trump family attended the lavish wedding at Mar-a-Lago. The atmosphere carried a sense of formality rather than genuine familial connection. Unlike her siblings, whose financial and professional fortunes remain intertwined with the Trump brand, Tiffany's marriage positioned her outside of it. Bolos, coming from a wealthy and independent business dynasty, offers Tiffany financial security, separate from her father's empire. This distance, intentional, or not only further underscores her removal from the Trump narrative, The question remains, was Tiffany's exclusion merely a consequence of circumstance? Or was she deliberately cast out for reasons yet to be revealed? We may never know, but with her billionaire husband, how did the pair cross paths? Let's find out. A Love Written in the Stars. Tiffany Trump's fateful encounter with Michael Boulos. Sometimes love comes when you least expect it. Tiffany Trump's life-changing moment occurred in the summer of 2018, on the gorgeous beaches of Mykonos. The location could not have been more ideal. Lindsay Lohan's luxury beach club, where lively music, crystal-clear waves, and a carefree mood made anything seem conceivable among the laughter and dancing. Tiffany locked eyes with Michael Boulos, who would change her life forever. But Michael wasn't just another charming vacationer enjoying Mykonos' nightlife. He was born in Lebanon and raised in Nigeria, and he is a member of the renowned Boulos family, a business dynasty with activities throughout Africa and the Middle East, from motorcycle sales to industrial manufacture. The Bellows brand represented enormous wealth and power. But Michael was more than just an heir. In his early 20s, he was quietly carving out his own history as a young director in the family's thriving businesses. Tiffany, on the other hand, has her own story as Donald Trump's daughter. She grew up in the harsh glare of the public eye, her life defined by a well-known surname, and a father whose work made headlines. At the time, she was pursuing a law degree at Georgetown University, while maintaining her presence in elite social circles. Their encounter at the famed beach bar was nothing short of incredible. Tiffany with her stylish upbringing and American charm. Michael with his diverse cultural history and quiet, business-oriented lifestyle. Their chemistry was immediate, an unspoken bond that defied expectations. What were the chances that two people with such different backgrounds would meet on a small Greek island? However, like with any storybook, love difficulties arose quickly. Their love story was about more than just two people. It included two families, two cultures, and two very different sets of expectations. Tiffany's life was permanently intertwined with the Trump name, exposing her to constant public attention as a result of her father's contentious political presence. Meanwhile, Michael's family valued tradition and privacy. Preferring to stay out of the spotlight, could their love withstand the pressures of extensive media coverage? More importantly, could they reconcile their various worlds before they were separated? Keep watching to find out a wedding against the storm. Tiffany Trump's high-stakes ceremony. Tiffany Trump and Michael Boulos married in a lavish ceremony in 2022, where the event was held in Mar-a-Lago, which is Donald Trump's legendary mansion in Florida, recognized for its magnificence, exclusivity, and close relationship with the current president. Everything was arranged for perfection. Lavish floral arrangements, a magnificent designer gown, and a guest list brimming with celebrities. But just when it seemed like Tiffany was about to have her fairy tale wedding, nature had other plans. A massive storm. Hurricane Nicole barreled toward Florida, bringing with it heavy winds and the looming threat of disaster. Tiffany's perfect wedding teetered on the brink of calamity. Weather reports were unpredictable. Changing by the hour, will the storm cause a postponement? Will their beautifully planned occasion turn into a rain-soaked disaster? It became a race against time to determine if the storm would pass before the ceremony, or if they'd have to cancel it altogether as the hurricane raged. The Trumps and wedding planners scrambled to keep everything organized. There were last-minute changes, backup plans thrown around, and an overwhelming sense of unpredictability. Guests were on edge, and a smoldering unease persisted beneath the exquisite surroundings. People discussed more than just the weather. Some wondered if their struggles that day were a sign of anything more severe, such as an unspoken clash between Tiffany's and Michael's worlds. The storm cleared just in time, and the wedding proceeded as scheduled. The photos told a beautiful story, Tiffany magnificent. In a lovely gown, stood behind Michael as they exchanged vows in front of family and friends. The ceremony was flawless, and the smiles captured on tape produced the perfect image. Something else persisted under the fairy tale surface, but after the wedding glamour faded, Tiffany faced a new reality, one far more complex than expected. What exactly was this new reality? Keep watching to find out. Tiffany Trump's new reality, when Tiffany Trump married Michael Boulos in 2022. It had all the elements of a fairy tale wedding. Two wealthy, influential families joining forces. It seemed like something straight out of a magazine. However, if you look a little closer, you will notice that there is much more beneath the surface than simply glitzy parties and gorgeous social media posts. Tiffany, the daughter of former and freshly elected US President Donald Trump, and Michael, a businessman with strong ties to both Nigeria and Lebanon, come from two very different worlds, and sometimes those distinctions are overwhelming. Have you ever wondered what happens when two people, from very different cultures, try to integrate their lives? It isn't always as easy as it appears. Michael grew up in Nigeria and was heavily impacted by his Lebanese roots. His family's principles were founded on tradition, strong family relationships, and the responsibility of sustaining the Boulos economic empire, which extends over Africa and the Middle East. For him, life was about legacy, stability, and family honor. In contrast, Tiffany was nurtured in the heart of American high society. Her life was influenced by media coverage, celebrity, and the fast-paced world of Trump brand politics. While Michael was navigating business traditions, Tiffany grew up with a last name that never left the headlines. Tiffany must have found it challenging to balance these two worlds. On one side, she was entering a culture that values discretion, legacy, and a strong corporate presence. On the other hand, she remained connected to a family known for its loud, unabashed presence in business and politics. But there was an additional layer to this dynamic. Unlike her half-siblings who have spent years at the center of political debates, business ventures, and media scrutiny, Tiffany has always kept a low profile. She was never the one making headline, grabbing statements, or standing on the front lines of her father's political empire. She preferred to live her life outside the public eye. That all changed after her marriage to Michael. Suddenly, Tiffany wasn't just Donald Trump's forgotten daughter. She was now part of another powerful dynasty, one that came with its own rules, expectations, and challenges. Suddenly, Tiffany Trump was back in the spotlight, but this time, it wasn't just about being Donald Trump's daughter. Now she had to balance two powerful legacies, the Trump name and the Bellows family's deeply rooted traditions. And that was no easy task. The Bellows family operates very differently from the Trumps, while the Trump family thrives on bold statements, high-profile media appearances, and aggressive business moves. The Boulos family is built on privacy tradition and a strong work ethic. They avoid unnecessary publicity, focusing instead on long-term business success and family honor growing up in Nigeria, under the influence of his family's empire, taught Michael to have a great regard for these ideals. His universe revolved around quietly growing enterprises, keeping strong family bonds, and preserving the Bellows name. Tiffany had to navigate a completely new cultural situation. She felt herself on a tightrope, trying to balance her husband's family traditions while being faithful to her own. At the same time, she had to live up to her father's high expectations and his widely publicized and frequently contentious legacy. It's a delicate dance, one that only a few can manage, without losing themselves in the process. Relationship expert Maria Trombetti put it best when she said, "Tiffany has always seemed like the outsider in her own family. That's a lot to handle, especially for someone who has never been comfortable in the public eye. And now that her marriage has put her in an even brighter limelight, the scrutiny she endures has only increased. Every movement she makes is observed, scrutinized and questioned. Yet beyond her new marriage, Tiffany's life took another turn. Her bond with her father began to shift. Stay tuned to know more, a strained bond. The changing relationship between Donald Trump and Tiffany. The relationship between Donald Trump and his daughter Tiffany has seen a dramatic shift over the years. Especially during his presidency, at first, things seemed steady. They weren't the closest father-daughter duo, but they talked on the phone now. And then, however, as time passed, those calls became less frequent. At times, months would go by without a single conversation. Her first real moment in Washington came when she attended a Wounded Warrior Project event. It was one of those quiet but meaningful moments. No grand speeches, no flashy headlines. Just her being present in support of her father's initiatives. And honestly, that's how Tiffany operated throughout those years. While her siblings, Ivanka Donald Jr. and Eric, were at the forefront of every major political event, making statements, rallying supporters, and defending their father, Tiffany was focused elsewhere. She wasn't trying to be in the spotlight all the time. Instead, she was grinding through law school at Georgetown University, which is no small feat, especially with a last name like Trump. That name followed her everywhere, bringing both privilege and pressure. But through it all, Tiffany seemed determined to carve out her own path, one that was separate from the political chaos constantly surrounding her family. Of course, being the president's daughter meant that even when she wasn't making waves, the media was still watching, and in 2019, the spotlight turned on her in a way she probably never expected that year. Madeleine Westerhout, a presidential assistant, made an offhand remark, suggesting that Donald Trump didn't like to take pictures with Tiffany because of her body. Yeah, imagine hearing something like that about your own father from someone inside his own White House. The media jumped on the story, and it became a full-blown scandal. Trump quickly tried to shut it down publicly, saying, "I love Tiffany." But by then, the damage was already done. Whether the comment was true or not, it left people wondering just how close Donald Trump really to his youngest daughter, despite the public speculation about her relationship with her father. Tiffany Trump still showed up when it mattered. In 2020, she took the stage at the Republican National Convention, but this time her speech had a different energy. She wasn't just there to praise her father, like she had in 2016. Instead, she delivered a message, a warning about media bias, and manipulated information. She called out the way the media shapes public opinion, and essentially urged people to think for themselves. It was a bold stance, especially for someone who had mostly stayed quiet in the political sphere. But here's what stood out. Unlike Ivanka, who always spoke about her father in a deeply personal way, Tiffany kept it formal. There were no touching father-daughter anecdotes, no stories about a doting dad. She focused strictly on endorsing his policies, even though she wasn't always in the White House. Tiffany still made time for family when it counted. She spent holidays at Mar-a-Lago and attended key family gatherings. She wasn't the one posting pictures online, but Ivanka made sure to include her in social media snapshots. A quiet reminder that Tiffany was still part of the family, even if she wasn't in the inner circle. In a family where public loyalty often felt like a requirement, Tiffany managed to walk a fine line, staying involved, yet keeping her independence. And that's not easy, especially with a last name that guarantees constant scrutiny for years. Tiffany Trump has been the most private member of the Trump family, staying out of the spotlight while her father dominated headlines. But as time went on, it became clearer than ever. Tiffany was a Trump, but she was never really one of them. Despite their strained bond, Tiffany found herself in a unique position. Unlike her siblings, she tried to keep herself out of legal trouble. But how did she do this exactly? Keep watching to find out how Tiffany avoided the family's legal troubles. In 2022, news broke that Donald Trump was being sued for fraud by New York's Attorney General. His 3 adult children were also named in the lawsuit, or at least that's how the media reported it. But there was a small problem. Trump didn't have 3 adult children. He had 4, unlike Donald Jr. Ivanka and Eric Tiffany Trump, the then 28-year-old daughter of Trump, and his second wife, was not included in the lawsuit, while reporters clearly intended to differentiate between Trump's adult children and his then 16-year-old son Barron. They completely ignored Tiffany. It wasn't the first time she had been overlooked, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. Even after Donald Trump left the White House, the pattern of erasing Tiffany continued. Throughout Trump's campaign and presidency, her absence was so noticeable that it seemed intentional, and it had been going on for decades. In 2004, Trump himself admitted to New York Magazine, I have another daughter with Marla, named Tiffany. She's just a beautiful, great kid also. But it's very separate when you have separate wives. It's sort of separate if Trump himself treated Tiffany as an afterthought. It was no surprise that the public and the media followed suit. Perhaps there was one upside to being forgotten. She managed to avoid the lawsuits that plagued her half-siblings while Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric were caught up in legal battles. Tiffany was nowhere to be seen. Her exclusion wasn't a coincidence. She had never been involved in the family business, which likely saved her from legal scrutiny. But what was she doing with all her free time, for one? She was a law school graduate, earning her degree from Georgetown in 2020. However, it wasn't clear if she was actively practicing law. One thing she was doing at the time was planning her wedding to businessman Michael Boulos, set to take place at Mar-a-Lago in November. Her social media had gone silent for months, suggesting that she had fully embraced her role out of the limelight, perhaps for once being the forgotten. Trump had worked in her favor by steering clear of the family's business dealings. Tiffany remained out of legal trouble, but not out of controversy. How did she get entangled in some of the drama? Let's find out. Tiffany Trump's unusual bond with a Secret Service agent during Donald Trump's presidency. Secret Service officials reportedly became concerned about how close Tiffany appeared to be getting to a particular agent. The agent's frequent interactions with Tiffany raised eyebrows within the agency. According to Carol Leonig's book, Zero Fail: The Rise and Fall of the Secret Service, the agent was eventually reassigned, though both he and Tiffany denied any inappropriate relationship. The exact timing of this alleged episode during Trump's presidency remained unclear. A Secret Service spokesperson declined to comment specifically on Tiffany's case, but stated that the agency had overcome past challenges and remained committed to its protective mission. Tiffany's spokesperson dismissed the claims, stating that her experience with the Secret Service was entirely professional, and that any speculation otherwise was mere gossip. Neither Tiffany nor Vanessa Trump responded to media inquiries about the allegations. By the time these rumors surfaced publicly, Tiffany's personal life had already taken a significant turn. She had been dating Michael Boulos since 2019, and the couple announced their engagement the day before Donald Trump left office in January 2021. Boulos, the son of a wealthy business family in Nigeria, met Tiffany at Lindsay Lohan's club in Mykonos in 2018. While some speculated that Lohan played matchmaker, she later clarified that she had only recently met Boulos and described her connection with Tiffany as friendly. Carol Leonig's book, Zero Fail, The Rise and Fall of the Secret Service, presented itself as a comprehensive account of the agency's history from the Kennedy assassination to mismanagement during the Obama and Trump administrations, and up to the January 6th Capitol riot. According to The Guardian, Leonig wrote that it was unclear whether Donald Trump was aware of the alleged unusual relationships between Secret Service agents and both his daughter Tiffany. The book also detailed Trump's complaints about certain Secret Service agents, claiming that some were too overweight for their job. Trump allegedly expressed frustration over their physical fitness, reportedly saying, "I want these fat guys off my detail. How are they going to protect me and my family if they can't run down the street in one of his final acts as president before leaving office in January 2021? Trump made the unusual decision to extend Secret Service protection for 6 months to all of his adult children, including Tiffany Trump. A Secret Service source told people at the time that the 6-month extension was meant as a transition period for Trump's children. Any further extension beyond that point would have required former President Joe Biden's approval. Following Trump's loss in the 2020 election, all of his children, except Eric Trump, made plans to relocate to Florida. Tiffany kept a low profile, but unexpected claims about her connection to a Secret Service agent raised eyebrows now. Another startling revelation put her name back in the headlines. Was she really a target of blackmail? Tiffany Trump, and the blackmail allegation in Trump's hush money trial. During Donald Trump's hush money trial, an unexpected revelation emerged concerning Tiffany Trump and an alleged blackmail attempt just weeks before the 2016 election. At the time, Tiffany had been a low-profile member of the Trump family, staying out of the political spotlight, compared to her half-siblings during cross-examination. Trump's lead attorney, Todd Blanche, questioned Michael Cohen about the alleged extortion attempt involving Tiffany Blanche. Used this line of questioning to suggest that Cohen's communications with Trump in October 2016 weren't solely about the Stormy Daniels payoff. Blanche specifically asked Cohen about an incident on October 25, 2016. When Tiffany allegedly reached out to him with concerns about someone trying to blackmail her. Cohen confirmed that he handled the situation immediately. The mention of Tiffany came one day after Cohen testified about using the phone of Keith Schiller, Trump's longtime security chief, to discuss the hush money payments. However, Blanche attempted to undermine Cohen's credibility, arguing that the phone call coincided with prank calls Cohen had been receiving from a 14-year-old Blanche, characterized the incident as a potential extortion attempt, involving photos raising questions about why Cohen did not inform Trump about it when asked if resolving Tiffany's situation was a priority. Cohen admitted it was important. "I take care of things, but it was not personally important to me." Blanche pressed further, asking whether Cohen had updated Trump about the matter during a phone call the next morning, to which Cohen denied doing so. This brief mention of Tiffany Trump was the only reference to her in the month-long trial. What are your thoughts on Tiffany Trump, and how she has always been a silent member of the Trump family? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.